Hello everybody. I'm going to give people a moment to jump on here. It's a beautiful day here in Orlando. Weather's pretty mild today, so sitting out on my balcony, and I thought I would comment and kind of sound off on some information on a documentary that I saw recently that is kind of all the rage right now. People keep asking me about it. So if you happen to tune in, please send a like, send a heart, chime in. Just let me know that you're here so I can say hello. For those of you that are new to my page or a new friend or follower, just to introduce myself, I'm Angelique Renee. I am a licensed esthetician and a holistic beauty and wellness coach here in Orlando, Florida. And I wanted to chime in on something really quick because I've been seeing some things lately that have made me feel a little bit passionate about communicating to my audience. So I had a lot of clients that were coming to me asking me if I had seen the documentary What the Health. They said that it's a lot of great information, that they're changing their diet as a result. And, there's a lot of great documentaries and information out there, and it's kind of nice nowadays because you can just tune into Netflix or YouTube or whatever. If you're tired at the end of the day and you don't feel like reading a book, you can actually watch videos these days. So I finally got to sit down and watch the documentary, and a couple of things really jumped out at me, and I wanted to kind of caution some people when you look at some of this information. Now, I will preface this by saying there was a lot of good information in the documentary. I liked kind of seeing from A to Z, kind of the food chain supply, what's going on, the good, the bad, and the ugly, as well as who the sponsors are for some of the major nonprofit organizations and why they actually condone eating certain things that may not be best for your health. So one of the biggest things that jumped out at me, first and foremost, was the number of times that health professionals and different people within the documentary were commentating on the fact that sugar is not an issue. That's a big problem for me. They were saying that sugar is not the cause of heart disease, that it's animal products and animal fats, and there is some truth to that. However, some information I wanted to kind of get out there, I don't know if everybody's aware, back in 1967, the sugar industry, when they figured out that there was a correlation between sugar and heart disease, they actually paid two Harvard doctors, and you guys can look this up, Google or whatever, paid two Harvard doctors $50,000 to create a study and do research blaming dietary fats for heart disease and saying that sugar was not part of the issue. And I was really surprised because as I'm watching this movie, they keep saying, hey, you can take somebody to a clinic and you could just feed them white rice and table sugar and they'll be fine. There's no issue, there's no heart disease, and the truth of the matter is that there is a link to inflammation. There is a link to triglycerides in the system. There's a link to all this stuff. So back in 1967, these two doctors were paid $50,000 to create a study that was published in the New England Journal of Medicine to blame dietary fats for heart disease rather than sugar. Once that got published, they were able to send lobbyists up to Washington to then campaign to make sure that they could no longer say that sugar could be blamed for heart disease and that it was actually dietary fats. Then what happened is after that, the food industry comes in behind them and says, we're going to create all these foods, margarine, low-fat yogurt, low-fat this, low-fat that, and they created an entire segment of foods targeted just to low-fat and non-fat. So, the thing is as an esthetician, I treat a lot of cases with acne, and we know that there's direct links between sugar, dietary fats, and acne, and what actually ends up in the skin. So one of the things I wanted to kind of get out there is that sugars turn to triglycerides in the system. So triglycerides are the fats from the food that we eat that are carried in the blood. So most of the fats that we eat, such as butter, margarine, oil, they're all in triglyceride form. Excess calories, alcohol, and sugar can turn into triglycerides in the body and are stored as fat cells throughout the body. So that was one thing I wanted to kind of put out there. And one of the things too is that we know that high blood sugar spikes your body to pump insulin, right? Pump up the production of insulin. So to bring down the spikes, the body responds by producing androgen hormones, okay? Now it's hormone impacting, right? Which can further aggravate acne. So if you take that a step further, androgens in a woman's body in particular, one of the main purposes of androgens is to be converted into female hormones called estrogens. Okay, so now you've got this chain reaction that's going on where you've got sugar that turns to triglycerides. Your body now releases androgens. Androgens are hormone impacting, and they're produced, typically it's produced in the ovaries, adrenal glands, and fat cells. But we know anything that's hormone impacting or even estrogenic can, again, tip the coenzyme A in your body, which is responsible for synthesizing dietary fats and fatty acids. So therefore, all this excess again ends up in the filter, your largest organ on the body, which is your skin. It also creates an inflammatory response, and we know that acne is an inflammatory response. So I just caution you. I like these documentaries that they're coming out with. They're bringing up a lot of good points, but we also have to make sure that it's fair and balanced. And it was almost, after hearing it so many times throughout the documentary, I was almost wondering who their sponsor was. I was wondering if they're sponsored by the sugar industry, because it just blows my mind that health professionals would go out there and say, go on a vegan diet, but you can eat all the sugar you want. And it's not going to be a big deal. It's not going to cause any problems. It has no impact on diabetes. It's not going to affect anything. You could have, white rice and table sugar all day long and you're going to be just fine. It just seems absurd, okay? So that was the first thing that really jumped out at me. And I wanted to caution people about. The second thing that really, I guess you could say, really just bothered me was they had a few different case studies, people that were suffering different health issues, diabetes, degeneration in the joints, hip pain, asthma, allergies, all these different things that they were suffering from. And they put them on a vegan diet. They went back to interview them 2 weeks later, and they came back. One gentleman said he had cut his medications in half, every single one that he was taking. Okay, fair enough. You're cutting back on your meds. I can see that. But the other two ladies that they interviewed were saying, it's been 2 weeks and I've basically gotten off of all my meds. Here's my concern with that. They were taking antidepressants, okay? Anybody that knows anything about antidepressants, MAO inhibitors, they build up in the system. Therefore, you need to wean off of them slowly, and typically with medical supervision. If you have somebody that has a clinical diagnosis, typically they want to wean off like over at least a 30-day period, which is my understanding. So I caution people, I really feel that we have to be responsible when we make certain claims, and I don't feel that it's responsible to go out and just throw somebody on a vegan diet for 2 weeks, come back and interview them 2 weeks later, and then have them say, oh, I got off all my meds and my antidepressants. That you have to be really careful with that. And again, I always try to be very fair and balanced. I have a holistic mindset. I treat people holistically, but I also believe you have to be responsible. You have to use caution, and you also have to know what's outside the scope of your practice. And if one of my clients came to me and said, no, I'm going vegan and I'm going to get off my meds, I would recommend that they consult with their doctor just to make sure. Now, I know sometimes when people aren't getting the answers they want, they take their health into their hands, and they become the steward of their own health, and they work intuitively to try to navigate through the system and try to get the results that they're looking for. Totally understand that. but there has to be a balance, and you have to use caution. And when you're talking about certain medications that build up in the liver and stuff like that, to have somebody just go off of it cold turkey, I don't think that sends the right message in a documentary that's being pumped out to the masses over Netflix right now. Like, that makes me really uncomfortable. So, and even for that matter, I have people that I love dearly that do have clinical diagnosis, that have suffered from depression and things like that. And I wouldn't recommend that somebody I love just go out and quit meds cold turkey and just say, you're going to be healed in a couple of weeks with vegetables, So, I'm not discouraging a vegan diet necessarily, or a predominantly plant-based diet. I just, from my experience, I know that it takes up to a 6-week period to detoxify the body when you've eliminated foods, medications, even when you're trying supplementation or new skincare and everything, 6 weeks is kind of the turning point where you start to really see the results. And I tell people, it could take 90 days, could take more. I have clients that are getting off of birth control, and I've seen them take a year and a half, 2 years for their hormones to balance back out. So, there is a correlation between sugar, between hormones, between insulin resistance, between acne. There's a correlation between all of that. So just to go out there and say, no, that's not true. It's just strictly animal products and strictly animal fats. That's only one piece of the pie. We have to look at the whole human holistically and understand that there's many pieces to the pie. It's not just a one and done silver bullet. This, takes care of all and takes care of everything. So, I wanted to kind of put that out there. And I'll probably talk about, vegan diets and things like that at a later date in another video, just kind of my take on it, because dietary information, nutrition, although we know that there are some chemicals and ingredients and food products that trigger specific conditions within the body, there are some variables with some people. It's not a blanket one-size-fits-all approach for everybody. We're all wired a little bit differently. We all have different blood types. Some people have different food allergies. So there's some things that you have to be aware of, that it's not just a blanket approach for everybody. Although there is some commonality, for the masses, and a starting place. If you are trying to correct any conditions with the body, it's kind of a process of elimination, and you kind of go down and check off, the different things that could be contributing to your condition, and try to kind of change that and turn that around. And sometimes that can be a process. It takes you years to build up a health condition. It takes you years to build up a problem. So it's typically going to take you at least several months to try to repair it, or to reverse it and start repairing it and everything else. There's times that clients come to me and they've been struggling with acne, say, for 10 years. If it's been going on for that long and their body's been tipped out of balance for that long, it's going to take us, it's going to be a process to detoxify and to balance and to start to heal and repair. So, it's just not an overnight, it's not an overnight success. Although they will see improvement from the first time that they come see us at the clinic, absolutely they're going to see a difference in the texture of their skin, and as congestion and infection and all that stuff is removed. But it just kind of like with diabetes, I always say you don't just get diagnosed with diabetes. It's something, for most cases, that has been building up in the system over a prolonged period of time. And even with heart disease, by the time somebody has a heart attack, that's the symptom of their condition, because they have been building up heart disease over a number of years, because they've been, their arteries are nicked and plaque is building up and all of these things. So, it just takes a commitment to the process. But anyways, if you guys have questions, if you guys have comments, certainly I value whatever feedback you give. I'm more than happy to answer information for you. I really felt compelled after so many clients that come to me saying, you've got to see this movie. You got to see this movie. It's amazing. It's great. I watched it and I'm like, I've done some research on some of this stuff, and not all of this is something that I condone. And not, the research that I've done does not necessarily support all the statements, or nor would I nor would I recommend some of the things that they are showing within the film. So I would invite you, if you ever have a question, research it. I mean, people pay me to give them advice and to give them coaching, and, you know, because sometimes they don't have the time or the energy or the bandwidth to do this kind of research, so they just kind of need somebody to give them the shortcut and tell them. That's why coaching is so valuable. It's an investment, so that way somebody can just give you the shortcut and try to kind of get past the trial and error, so you can save time and save money and save energy and everything else. But, you know, I would invite you, if you guys have questions about some of this stuff, look it up. 1967, 2 Harvard doctors paid $50,000 to create a study published in the New England Medical Journal. I do want to also mention one thing with that. In today's society, that would not happen, because today doctors and scientists have to reveal their funding source before they get published to make sure there's no ulterior motives or anything like that. So this is something that's been, you know, from a long time ago, that the rules of the game have changed. However, we are still battling the ramifications of those of a false case study being published and us creating marketing and food products around those false case studies. And you can see our society has more inflammatory diseases than ever, more obesity than ever, more food allergies than ever, more acne than ever, you know, all of these things. And so I think that awareness is being heightened, and I'm glad people are starting to pay attention to this stuff, but just always think of the next logical question. If something sounds a little too good to be true, always research it, or consult with somebody, or invest in coaching, or whatever it is that you need to do to make sure that you're getting the accurate information. I just am not a fan of just wholeheartedly jumping on the bandwagon and just saying, that's it, I saw this documentary and that's the end all be all and this is how I'm going to do things. Just, you know, be fair and balanced and be responsible. That's all I encourage you. So anyways, I thank you so much for chiming in. I see Jill, I see Shelly, hi Maria, Lauren, Katrina. I see a bunch of people that jumped on. Thank you for tuning in. I'm probably going to start doing these videos a little more often so people have a better understanding, just because I do spend so much time educating people on a regular basis. And you know, this is just something I'm very passionate about, and I just want to make sure people are getting the right information and accurate information, and making sure that they don't jump on a bandwagon that could potentially be detrimental to their health or to a condition they're trying to reverse or whatever. So we do have to, like I said, we try to do everything holistically as much as possible, but we also have to be medically responsible at the same time. So thank you guys. Tune in for tuning in. Post any questions or comments below. So thanks, guys. Have a good day. Bye.